Hello, I'm Mark Howard with Chris Wagner. Coming up on the early edition of Action News, there is looting and scattered shooting in Panama City. On the second day of the invasion, Noriega is still at large. Bodies of American servicemen killed in Panama are flown home to Dover Air Force Base. We will have a live report.
Cold weather tightens its grip on the Delaware Valley and is responsible for 2 deaths in Kensington. A special commission finds serious misjudgments were made at Camp Hill but says no one should be fired. Scott Palmer says goodbye to Gizmo, and Dave Roberts has a bitterly cold AccuWeather forecast. All on the early edition of Action News next.
Channel 6 is proud to present a musical Christmas Eve special for the entire family, featuring the Philadelphia Boys Choir and Chorale. A special musical Christmas Eve at 11:30 on Channel 6.
Aaron, I don't think there's anything you can say that I want to hear.
A romantic drama, A Wedding on Walton's Mountain.
Ashley's in the past. And I'm sorry that I used him to hurt you.
Stop it, you stupid ball! Stop it! I'm sick of both of you and I never want to see either one of you again!
Now, honey, as long as there's a Walton's Mountain and a Walton to live on it, we're going to build that house.
A Wedding on Walton's Mountain, Friday night.
Christmas Nuts and Scrooges, tomorrow at 4.
Action News, Delaware Valley's leading news program, with Scott Palmer, Dave Roberts, Lisa Thomas-Laurie, and Mark Howard.
Good evening. Lisa will be along at 6. Chris Wagner joins us tonight in the news. Concern over a spate of bomb attacks spreads to Washington. We will talk live to Attorney General Dick Thornburgh.
There are more reports of bloodshed in Romania as Nicolae Ceausescu continues his crackdown. And in Berlin, preparations are underway for an historic opening.
But the big story on Action News tonight is President George Bush saying that the U.S. invasion of Panama is all but over. Panama is now under curfew about 40 hours after the U.S. invasion began early yesterday morning. Signs of the fighting can be seen in the streets of Panama City. U.S. troops taking up positions in strategic areas and continuing to seek out small pockets of resistance. But many of the streets belong not to soldiers today, but to looters who took advantage of the invasion to grab anything they could carry. The search for deposed strongman Manuel Noriega goes on. State Department officials say they've received numerous reports of Noriega's sightings, and they believe he's still in Panama. President Bush met with reporters this afternoon for the first time since the invasion, and he admitted there are some frustrations about the fact that they did not grab Noriega as soon as the invasion began because his capture was part of the goal.
Good news, he's out of power. The bad news, he has not yet been brought to justice. So I'd have to say, Terry, there is a certain level of frustration on that account. The good news, though, is that the government's beginning to function and the man controls no forces, and he's out. But yes, I won't be satisfied until we see him come to justice.
Well, President Bush expressed his sorrow over the American lives lost in the invasion. It's now up to 19 killed, 117 wounded, and 1 missing. In Managua, Nicaraguan troops surrounded the U.S. embassy today after reports that the U.S. had surrounded the Cuban and Nicaraguan embassies in Panama City in an effort to keep Noriega from fleeing. But U.S. allies in Latin America are not happy about the decision to invade. The Organization of American States is meeting today to consider whether to formally condemn the U.S. actions.
The bodies of the servicemen killed in the U.S. invasion of Panama have begun returning now to the United States. Dan Cuellar is now live on the action cam at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Dan?
Chris, once again, Dover Air Force Base has been transformed into the scene of a solemn ceremony for which an entire nation mourns its losses. The coming of the Christmas holidays notwithstanding, they only seem to have added to the feeling of loss here today as the first military plane carrying the casualties arrived. The C-141 Starlifter carrying the bodies of the 4 Navy servicemen arrived from Kelly Air Force Base in Texas shortly after 3. The 4 have been identified as Isaac Rodriguez III from Missouri City, Texas, Donald McFall from San Diego, John Connors from Arlington, Virginia, and Chris Tillman from Hawaii. All were Navy SEALs, said to be involved in a special operation to isolate General Noriega.
There were 4 individuals that were suffered casualties while leading the assault at the Portilla airfield in Panama, which is the location for General Noriega's aircraft.
In a brief and solemn ceremony which involved an honor guard and a Navy band, Navy Secretary Lawrence Garrett III praised the men as heroes.
This is not the first time we have been called to the altar of honor with grieving hearts, nor will it be the last. All we can do is honor their memory by never forgetting that our lives under the banner of democracy have been further protected with their deaths.
The 4 are said to be the only Navy men killed in this conflict. Later tonight, another plane carrying other casualties will arrive here from Howard Air Force Base in Panama at about 8:15. The bodies will be inspected and prepared for burial here at the East Coast Port Mortuary for the Defense Department before being flown to their families at home and their final resting places. I'm Dan Poyet, live on the action cam at Dover Air Force Base, Delaware.
All right, Dan, and we will have more on the Panama story coming up tonight at 5:30 and 6.
And Chris, meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, the crisis in Romania seems to be escalating tonight. President Nicolae Ceausescu addressed a crowd in Bucharest, but a short while later, things got ugly. The national television picture was shut off. Troops then opened fire on the crowd. Now, word is several people were killed, and tanks are rolling in several Romanian cities trying to put down the popular revolt, the demand for freedoms which have overtaken virtually every other East Bloc country. So far, Ceausescu's holding on, but the Russians seem to have made it clear that they will not get involved.
A Kentucky man today was convicted of 27 counts of manslaughter in the nation's deadliest drunk driving accident. The accident happened in May of last year when Larry Mahoney drove his pickup truck the wrong way on Interstate 71 in Carrollton, Kentucky. He crashed head-on into a bus carrying members of a church youth group returning from an amusement park. The bus burst into flames. 24 children and 3 adults died. Now, during the trial, Mahoney admitted being drunk and driving the wrong way, but his lawyers claim that the faulty design of the bus gas tank and not the collision is what caused the explosion and the fire that killed the victims. The 36-year-old Mahoney could have been convicted of murder. The concern over a series of recent bomb attacks has now spread to Capitol Hill. Security there is being tightened on mail entering the Capitol and at mail entering congressional offices. The new precautions come after mail bombs killed a federal judge in Alabama, forced the evacuation of a federal courthouse in Atlanta and an NAACP headquarters in Jacksonville, Florida, and killed a civil rights activist in Savannah, Georgia. Now, there's growing suspicion that all those bombings are related and are the work of white supremacists and may be linked to a desegregation case decision handed down in Atlanta in September.
Well, joining us now live from the nation's capital is Attorney General Dick Thornburgh, who used to be a regular around here from his days as governor of Pennsylvania. Mr. Thornburgh, nice to see you again.
Good evening, Mark.
I wonder if you could tell us first, there seem to be 2 theories floating around. One, a white supremacist group, or possibly the work of one deranged person. What do you think at this point?
Well, obviously at this point, it's very difficult to tighten down on a particular theory. Suffice to say that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice have made this a very high priority. It's the kind of assault on our system that truly has the capacity to undermine the rule of law, and we're determined to get to the bottom of it.
Can you give us any clue at this point, if you're getting close, if you have anything that in any way points to anything anywhere? Obviously, you know a lot that you can't tell us, but could you give us some idea? Are you getting warm?
Well, I think we want to be cautious in the midst of an investigation as we are. I think I'm convinced and confident that the FBI and the other federal agencies working on this we'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll be able to bring those responsible for these dreadful acts to the bar of justice.
Mr. Thornburgh, let's switch gears a little bit now, talk about General Noriega. If he is apprehended and if he is brought here, what will be the procedure against him? How will he be treated? What are the charges, and what could happen to him?
He faces 2 indictments in the United States on charges relating to drug trafficking and money laundering. Those are both in Florida. If he is brought to the United States after apprehension in Panama, he'll be brought before a magistrate and arraigned and then await trial. We're ready, willing, and I think able to successfully prosecute this case.
You have done this before, right? Brought people in from another country and tried them, brought them in against their will, true?
Yes, we have. We have extradited 10 figures involved in the Colombian drug cartels under the emergency decree that President Virgilio Barco issued earlier this year. And we've had a lot of experience in dealing with these cases, and as I said, we're ready to go.
Thank you very much, Attorney General Dick Thornburgh, joining us live from Washington. Thank you, sir. Chris?
Okay, Mark, in local news tonight, seems everyone's talking about the weather. It is cold and getting colder. People were all bundled up today, but today is nothing compared to how cold it will be starting tonight. The mercury will plunge overnight, and it will not start coming back up until Christmas. Dave Roberts is outside the studio now with the word on just how cold it's going to get. Dave?
I'll tell you, Chris, you're really starting to feel it with the sun down a couple of hours now and the wind starting to kick up. Here's the call from AccuWeather for this evening. One way to describe it is bitter cold. Overnight low about 2 degrees in the suburbs, 8 for Center City. We're going to have winds on top of that out of the northwest, he said, 12 to 22 miles per hour, which gives us wind chills, minus 20, minus 30. This is just the beginning of it. It's going to stay with us. It appears right through Sunday when we'll start to get a little relief out of this system, Sunday on into Monday. Now, there are some things that you should be concerned about with temperatures dropping as they are and freezing. First of all, make sure that all the water pipes are insulated. If you've got insulation around them, you're going to be all right. If not, one of the ways to try and help them from freezing up is just let the water trickle just a little bit. You need insulation. If you don't have it, wrap some newspapers around them or let the water trickle a little bit. As far as the car is concerned, you better have checked that antifreeze. Make sure that you have it in there, number one. Make sure that it is strong enough to withstand temperatures 20 to 30 degrees below zero with a wind chill factor. And then, of course, make sure we all are familiar with that sound when you step on the gas pedal and there's a make sure the battery is fully charged. You're going to need all the charge that you can get. And of course, for you personally, make sure that you cover up when you go outside. If you are outside in this weather for any extended period of time and not covered up, the ears start to tingle, the nose, the cheeks. So make sure that you take care of yourself. Those are the early words from AccuWeather and some advice along with that. We'll be back with the rest of the forecast in just a few minutes. Right now, let's go back inside. I believe we're going back into Chris. Chris?
You are, Dave. Thank you very much. You better bundle up. Well, the frigid weather is being blamed for the deaths of at least 4 people, 2 of them last night in the Kensington part of the city. David Henry has that story.
It was a grim sight as the bodies were carried from the house on Allegheny Avenue last night. 80-year-old Olga Carlisle and 80-year-old Gustav Merwitz were found in an upstairs bedroom. She was lying on a bed and he was on the floor. The coroner says they froze to death.
She was in there by herself and she was afraid. And that's why she had a man in there, you know. Was not her boyfriend. It was just a man that would help her, you know.
Neighbors say they knew something was wrong when they hadn't seen Mrs. Carlisle in a while. They say her normal habit was to come out at about 6 o'clock every morning and start sweeping up the trash on the sidewalk all up and down the block. But as you can see, the trash hasn't been swept in a long time.
And she was out here all day cleaning. She cleans everybody's payment.
Yeah.
So I said to her, this is funny. She hasn't been seen, and there's nobody that knows her, only her son, and nobody knows where he is.
Maintaining the house was apparently too much for Mrs. Carlisle and her boarder. A water pipe in the basement had broken. She left this window open to air it out, but the breeze kept blowing out the pilot light on her hot water heater. She had oil heat, but the police say the house was ice cold when they found the bodies. Mrs. Carlisle could have gotten help from a nearby senior citizen center.
People aren't aware, and they might not think of calling a senior citizen center like St. Anne's or another kind of program to get that information.
With temperatures dropping to dangerous lows, social workers say it's a good idea to check in on elderly neighbors. You could be saving a life. David Henry, Channel 6 Action News, Kensington.
Meanwhile, angry homeless protesters today charged Mayor Good's administration with being cold-hearted about their plight. Calling themselves homeless concerned citizens, the protesters marched to the west side of City Hall today to rally for housing. They staged a memorial service for the homeless who died in the city's streets. The protesters say there are empty properties in the city that should be made into proper homes for the homeless.
You have kept us without housing far too long. Now we're preparing to take them. And we want to let them know that we're not asking any longer because we cannot no longer afford to wait. We cannot wait, not when our brothers and sisters are dying on the streets of the city of Philadelphia. We're sending a clear message. We're letting them know that we're going to take over every damn building that we can possibly take over. We're going to take them.
That's right. Well, the group says it has hired a lawyer to fight for homeless rights. and they say they will be back at City Hall. For his part, Mayor Good said today that Governor Casey and President Bush aren't doing their fair share to help care for Philadelphia's homeless. At a briefing on the mid-year status of the city budget, the mayor said Philadelphia is spending all it can on the homeless.
Downtown Philadelphia, and look up, and you can see with your own eyes all the signs of progress and revitalization. It's all beginning to come together. But then look down at the streets where we live and look at the pain and suffering that has been caused by this decade of neglect.
The mayor says that he will put pressure on lawmakers in Harrisburg and Washington to increase their support for the homeless. As for the budget itself, the mayor said his efforts to cut spending are working and that a $61 million deficit is due to programs which his office has no control over.
Coming up on the early edition of Action News, Governor Casey signs a bill designed to make Sixers and Flyers fans happy.
And one kick returner will not be returning to the Eagles. Scott Palmer has all the sports. Dave Roberts back with the latest from AccuWeather when the early edition of Action News comes right back.
Let's get a monthly ticket.
Okay, hold on.
Hey,
you guys, free coffee.
This is great. What is it? What is this?
I think it's good.
You know, this smells really good.
Delicious. What is this?
Sanka ground roast.
No way, this isn't Sanka.
I'm really surprised.
Sanka has found a special natural way to remove caffeine while keeping virtually all the coffee flavor in the bean.
This tastes like I still don't believe in Sanka, though.
I know about this stuff. I read.
Listen,
The fact is,
I know football and I know coffee, and this is good coffee.
It reads, it writes, it lets you edit your own videos like a professional with hi-fi stereo sound so clear it feels real. It's the next generation of VCR. Toshiba at Macy's, changing the way you see electronics. Picture an image as big as life, then see it on Toshiba's SuperTube TV. Extraordinary in every detail, including the size. Toshiba at Macy's, changing the way you see TV.
It's almost here. Are you singing Deck Those Halls and Spreading Christmas Cheer? We wait,
But
we
that's
stay.
the problem. That's exactly
But
the
we
problem.
love it. We look
But that's the
forward
problem.
to
What
it.
about the people who might need some underwear during the year? You know?
Or would you rather deck these people all glittery dressed in red and green?
He started hating Christmas when he was 18 and he found out that there was no Santa.
It's a battle between Christmas lovers and Scrooges on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
Watch the Oprah Winfrey Show tomorrow at 4.
Governor Casey today signed into law the state's proposal to keep the Flyers and the 76ers in Philadelphia. Now, the measure would provide $3 million to demolish JFK Stadium and prepare the site for a new arena, and it would give another $2 million for parking and landscaping. In addition, the teams would pay a $2 million a year fee to the city instead of property taxes, which could, of course, go up. Now, the plan only goes into effect if the teams stay in Philadelphia instead of going to Camden, and if they agree to stay put for at least 29 years. The commission looking into October's prison riots at Camp Hill near Harrisburg is finished with its investigation now, and today it gave its final report to Governor Bob Casey. Suzanne LaFranchi has the story.
With his handpicked commission by his side, Governor Casey unveiled the 57-page report on what led to the 2 days of bloody rioting at the Camp Hill State Prison. The conclusion? Serious misjudgments by prison officials led to the second night of rioting. According to the report, prison officials decided not to search the cells after the first riot was brought under control, despite repeated warnings that inmates had keys, tools, and weapons.
If it had been done, we believe it would have revealed the fact that the cells that night were not secure, that the locking devices had been badly damaged, and as a result of the damage, many of the cells, an overwhelming number of the cells, could easily be opened.
Despite the findings, the panel is not recommending that Governor Casey fire anyone. But the report did criticize Corrections Commissioner David Owens for taking a hands-off approach to the uprising. Prison Superintendent Robert Freeman was suspended without pay shortly after the riot. Governor Casey has yet to decide if punitive action will be taken against anyone.
Frankly, the conclusions give me serious concern about the entire question of how and why this occurred. And I have gotten out to weigh that in making my decision.
The commission, made up of former Judge Arlen Adams, former House Speaker Leroy Irvis, and former Governor George Leader, made several recommendations, including tighter security by upgrading locking mechanisms and increasing security staff. reassess alternatives to incarceration, institute an earned time policy, and require the state's inspector general to oversee the Department of Corrections. Many are not happy with the report, saying it simply echoed something everyone already knew.
Someone's going to have to answer for this. We know that day 2 should not have happened. We know there was not a lockdown when they said there was, and that the facility was not secure.
This isn't the only report on the riots. Separate House and Senate investigations are being conducted. Their results won't be known for at least 2 months. I'm Suzanne LaFranchi, Channel 6 Action News in Harrisburg.
Pennsylvania Auditor General Barbara Hafer has lost ground in her house cleaning efforts. Hafer, the frontrunner for the Republican nomination for governor next year, had fired 16 employees in her office whom she felt were tainted by a job purchasing scandal. Today, the first of those 16 to go to arbitration won his job back. The arbitrators ruled that she had no grounds for the firing. Hafer could appeal to Commonwealth Court.
At Circuit City's holiday sale, save on this Magnavox 19-inch color TV with remote, just $249.97. This Sharp VCR with remote programming, only $227.97. And JVC's compact VHS camcorder with flying erase head, now a low $777.97. This season's most exciting gifts are on sale now at Circuit City, where service is state-of-the-art.
It's time to get out the boots, the belt, and that old red suit as Santa gets dressed for Christmas Eve at his very own suit factory in Vineland, New Jersey. Then we'll discover how they make the magic at an old-fashioned toy shop that would even amaze Santa Claus. Then it's an unforgettable story of a family holiday reunion. I'm Gary Papa with our primetime Christmas special, Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
Your Dodge dealer announces an automotive first, the guaranteed rebate. If these rebates go up this model year, we'll pay you the difference on Dodge's best, like $1,000 on Caravans, up to $1,500 on Dakotas, up to $1,500 on Daytonas, and up to $2,000 on full-size pickups. That's the guaranteed rebate, only from your Dodge dealer. Nobody can match us. Not Ford, not Chevy, nobody.
See your local Dodge dealer today, where the spirit always shows.
Scott Palmer's here, and a couple of the names in the lockers at the Eagles place going to change, huh?
Yeah, right around Christmas time, too, to get fired around Christmas. Not a good sign. Makes Buddy Ryan look a little bit like the Grinch who stole Christmas, or at least who stole Gizmo. You know, when the Eagles signed Gizmo Williams as a punt returner, they thought they had a real speedster who could break a few long and also maybe back up Chris Carter at wide receiver. But the little guy who was a legend in the Canadian Football League never made it here, and today the Eagles released him. Gizmo got the news this morning before practice. After being deactivated for the last 2 games, he said he knew his job was on the line.
And I kind of felt it a little bit, you know, but I just wanted to keep going and, you know, and keep my mind focused, you know, each week. And in case I get ready to play, I didn't want to think about that all the time. But I kind of had to fit it a little bit.
McPherson wants to go deep. Gizmo, can he get there? He does!
Gizmo had a great debut, catching a touchdown pass in the London game and then doing a flip in the end zone. But as a punt receiver, he was more of a flop. Buddy Ryan, though, did make it possible for him to remain with the Eagles until the end of the season.
He gave me opportunity if I wanted to come back on the developmental squad, but I just wanted to say, no, I said that's okay, you know, and just take a break right now. Just go home and get ready for Christmas.
When I talked with Buddy today, he was a little surprised that Gizmo didn't take him up on his offer.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, a guy can pick up $1,000 a week for the next 4 or 5 weeks. You'd think he'd do that, but that's, you know, that's his business, not mine. I could have cut him 2 days before that, and he wouldn't have got paid this week. He gets paid for this week, so you'd think he'd want to turn around if he's the team guy he claimed he was and help us out. But that's all right. He closed the door completely, so that's his choice. We had offensive line problems. We had to make some moves to correct those things.
In those moves, former Eagle Reggie Singletary is back now, replacing Matt Darwin, who goes on injured reserve. And Buddy today also activated Steve Gabbard to shore up the offensive line. Buddy gave him every chance, he said, and Gizmo just couldn't cut it.
Too bad.
Popular guy around the locker room. A lot of people sorry to see him go. But that's the way it is in the NFL, even if it is Christmas time.
Yep. All right, Scotty. The Salvation Army and the National Guard joined forces today to help some disadvantaged Philadelphians have a good Christmas. Members of the National Guard loaded up some 200 food baskets today at the Salvation Army headquarters in Center City. The food is paid for by the Salvation Army and is distributed to senior citizens and the disabled who find it hard to get out to shop for food. Holiday dinners heading out to help some folks have a Merry Christmas.
Next time you make a purchase, use Gold MasterCard and be protected with Master Purchase, the plan that automatically insures most things you buy against damage, theft, or loss. Should anything happen, you just make one phone call anytime and it will be replaced. And you have this coverage at nearly 3 times more places than American Express. Master Purchase from the world's #1 gold card, Gold MasterCard. Call Chevy Chase at 1-800-253-7000 for an application.
This Saturday night at 7:30 on Visions, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, American heroes from a quarter-century ago.
Michael Schwerner had been marked for death. The other 2 boys died because they were with him.
When they were looking for my brother and his companions, they found an additional 11 black people bodies in the lakes in Neshoba County.
I'm Vernon Odom. Join me as Visions takes a trip back to Mississippi and Freedom Summer.
The best way to start your day is right here at 5:30 a.m. on Channel 6 with Good Morning. We'll bring you the first news of the day from Action News and the very latest from AccuWeather. You'll meet newsmakers, leaders, and experts, and there's a daily tip to keep you fit.
That's it.
Serious, sensible, or sensational, whatever the topic, we've got it covered, including our own Mr. Food.
Ooh, it's so good.
Join me, Linda Munich, for a better way to start the day on Good Morning, beginning at 5:30 every weekday morning, right here on Channel 6.
Dave Roberts back outside in the frigid air, Dave.
I'll tell you, there's one thing cheering me up tonight. We have an automobile that's completely decked with reindeers and a sled and everything. Well, watch, it's going to be going by very, very soon here. You have to see this. This is, it'll warm things up. How you doing, guys? You're looking, oh, don't come up on the curb while they're doing, well, there they are anyway. Santa has arrived a little early. Let's talk about the cold weather. It's Thursday, the 21st day of the month of December. Winter is here, as if you didn't know. Show the 5 o'clock numbers. Present temperature reading is 19 degrees. Relative humidity 48%. The barometer 30.13. It's on the rise. Northwesterly winds at 14 miles per hour. The wind chill is now a -4. Only 25 degrees today for the high. Normally we should be at 41. The Arctic invasion continues. Our low is 13. It's going to break that and go down even colder. For tonight, we're going to say bitterly cold. Now, if you live out in the suburbs, expect about 2 degrees. In Center City, 8 degrees. The winds will be northwesterly 12 to 22 miles per hour, taking wind chills to 20 to 30 degrees below zero. For tomorrow, Friday, there's no let-up. Dangerously cold. The high only 10 degrees. And once again, that is the high for tomorrow. The winds stay out of the northwest. They're a little bit stronger, 12 to 25 miles per hour. And again, the wind chills -20, -30. On Saturday, we're anticipating a high of only 12 degrees, so we stay from tonight as we start to plunge with those temperatures right through Saturday on into Sunday. On Sunday, we look for a little moderation of about 22 degrees. That's moderation. So be prepared to deal with dangerously cold weather. Those are the early words from AccuWeather. We're live. Santa Claus is moving out. I guess it's time to go back to Mr. Mark.
Okay, Dave. Well, it was 28 years ago that Berlin's historic Brandenburg Gate was closed and walled off as the infamous Iron Curtain fell over Eastern Europe. Tonight, preparations are underway for tomorrow's reopening of the landmark to unrestricted east-west travel. Built in 1791, the gate became a looming symbol of the closed society created in 1961 when the Soviets put up the Berlin Wall. With the walls reopening, the gate's now a symbol of newfound freedom in East Germany. And with the Christmas season, that was something to sing about today in Berlin.
There is much more still to come on the early edition of Action News. It was a year filled with terror. As we look back at this chilling scene, we'll recall the top international stories of the 1980s.
And was this Eddie Murphy hit film Murphy's original idea, or was it stolen from somebody else? That matter now before a Los Angeles judge. All of that and much more coming up when the early edition of Action News comes right back.
basics.
Every day, it makes things happen.
Matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find. Catch me a catch. Matchmaker, matchmaker, you are the book where millions more people look.
The Matchmaker, the Belle of Pennsylvania Yellow Pages. Every day it goes to work. Every day it matches more buyers with more sellers. Every day we use it and use it and use it more.
Excuse me, can I use this?
The genuine Belle of Pennsylvania Yellow Pages. No other book can match it. A Bell Atlantic company.
This holiday season, please drive with care. The best to you and your family. From Amoco.
Chopper 6, only on Action News. Action News continues with Scott Palmer, Dave Roberts, Lisa Thomas-Laurie, and Mark Howard.
Hello again. Lisa will be along at 6. Chris Wagner joins us tonight. Here are the top stories we're following. As U.S. troops continue their manhunt for the deposed ruler of Panama, looters are having a field day in the aftermath of the U.S. invasion. Families and friends remember their loved ones killed in the Flight 103 tragedy 1 year ago today. And the deadly cold weather is taking a toll on elderly people in Philadelphia.
Now the details. President Bush says the U.S. military assault on Panama isn't over yet, but is, in his words, pretty well wrapped up. Fighting, meantime, continues in Panama while looters run rampant through the streets. U.S. troops are staging a manhunt today, searching for ousted ruler Manuel Noriega, who got away during yesterday morning's invasion. Noriega is believed to still be in Panama. American troops are also looking for Americans who were said to have been taken hostage as the Noriega regime collapsed. At least a dozen are believed to have been captured. The Pentagon, meantime, has placed the American troop death count at 19. At least 117 servicemen are wounded. Bush spoke to reporters at the White House today, asked whether it was worth sending soldiers to their death. He replied yes.
Look, Mr. President, no way can you do an operation this large and not have American casualties. So the Defense Department was very upfront with us about that. And every human life is precious. And yet I have to answer, yes, it has been worth it.
Mr. Bush vowed to press ahead with the search for Noriega. Meantime, the bodies of 4 sailors returned to American soil today, the first of America's dead to return from Panama. They were taken off a transport jet at Dover Air Force Base in somber proceedings. As you may know, Dover Air Force Base is the usual return point for U.S. military personnel who have died overseas. And like others in years past, these fallen servicemen will eventually be returned to hometowns all across the nation. A dozen more bodies are expected to be flown into Dover later on tonight.
Now, Chris, on to the big local story, which unfortunately on this first day of winter is deadly cold. The cold snap in Philadelphia has now officially claimed 4 lives. An elderly couple discovered frozen to death yesterday, now been identified as 80-year-old Gustav Merwitz and 80-year-old Olga Carlisle, who apparently lived together in the 1800 block of Allegheny Avenue. In addition, an unidentified street person picked up at 12th and Arch died of hypothermia. And last night, 88-year-old Dorothy Chester of North Philadelphia died in her home, also a victim of the cold. As Dave Roberts prepares an even colder AccuWeather forecast, note this number. It is the Philadelphia Energy Assistance Hotline, 686-2590. If you know anybody without heat in the city, call that hotline.
Police in Wilmington, Delaware are searching for a woman they say has been robbing elderly people in their homes. Now, this is a picture of the woman, 28-year-old Joyce Hall of Wilmington. Police say that she has pretended to need help, has gone to the doors of elderly people on the west side of Wilmington, pleading to be let in. Once inside, she allegedly beats and robs the victims. Now, this has happened to at least 10 people. If you know where Joyce Hall is, Wilmington police would like to hear from you. A pilot is dead tonight following the crash of his twin-engine Piper this morning in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. The pilot was 15 minutes out of Teterboro Airport this morning on his way to pick up some passengers in Reading, PA, when he radioed the Allentown Tower and said that one of his engines was on fire. 5 minutes later, he radioed that he was going down. The pilot, whose identity has not yet been released, was killed when the plane crashed into a field and then ran into a stone fence.
It was a year ago today. 270 people died when a terrorist bomb destroyed Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. As Kathy Gandolfo reports, it's a tragic anniversary for the families of the victims.
The families and friends were on their way to attend a memorial service for their loved ones who perished a year ago. For Eileen Minetti, whose son Rick was killed, attending the service was important.
We have to keep doing something, and memorializing is part of it. It's remembering, and that we never, forget that these people were killed because they were Americans flying an American carrier.
And friends of the Minettis did not forget. They marked the day with red ribbons. As a tribute to Rick Minetti and to his family during their time of sorrow last year, the Minettis' neighbors tied red ribbons to their trees. This morning, when the Minettis woke up, they looked out the window, and the ribbons were back. It was the neighbors' way of saying they hadn't forgotten. While the families headed to Washington, the support group to which they belong, called Victims of Pan Am Flight 103, sent a letter to President Bush. The message was clear.
Until the United States government deals with state-supported terrorism, there'll be more of these groups and more parking lots going to more memorials. We have to deal with that.
Marie and Frank Klein of Trenton lost their daughter Patricia in the bombing. They too are hoping and praying the U.S. finds a way to end terrorism. But today their thoughts were with other families as well.
We just feel for all those young men who perished at Panama, and we would extend our sympathy to their families also.
By 2 this afternoon, the group assembled with others at Holy Trinity Church in Washington for a candlelight service. For these families, the horror of 1 year ago has forever changed their lives. But being together to remember those they loved helps ease their pain. I'm Kathy Gandolfo, Channel 6 Action News.
Coincidentally, one of the suspects in that Pan Am bombing was convicted in Sweden today of another terrorist attack. It was in July of 1985. The Northwest Airlines office in Copenhagen, Denmark was bombed. And today, 35-year-old Mohammed Abu Talb, a Palestinian, was convicted of the bombing and sentenced to life in prison. Talb was a suspect in the Pan Am case, but no charges have yet been filed against him in that case.
And still to come on the early edition of Action News, a popular rocker racks up more nominations stemming from his hottest-selling album.
And in sports, an Eagle of yesterday gets together with the Eagles of today. Yo, Chuck. Scott Palmer has all the sports. Dave Roberts tells us about our shortest day of the year today, the AccuFacts file, and more coming up when Action News comes right back.
Get the Atlantic difference. This high yield on Atlantic 6-month CDs. Visit a branch and make more money with this high yield. Atlantic Financial.
That was me, bald as a billiard ball. Then I found the cure. Kretschmer wheat germ can't grow hair on your head, but it can top your ice cream with great nutrition and crunch. Baldness. Who says you can't lick it?
When I heard I could improve my measurements, I thought it was some crazy half-baked scheme.
Adding Kretschmer wheat germ can't give you an hourglass figure, but it can make your baking more nutritious.
Perfect measurements, you know. Make me a smart cookie.
Kretschmer, the heart of the wheat.
Bacon! Bacon! Where's the bacon? I smell bacon! 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 Gotta be bacon! Only one thing smells like bacon! That's bacon! Bacon, 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 bacon! There! From that bag! What's it say? I can't read! Please, please, give me what's in the bag! Chewy, yummy, smoky bacon!
There you go.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy! No, 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 no! It's bacon!
No, it's new Bacon Strips brand dog snack from Purina. Bacon Strips. Dogs don't know it's not bacon.
It's bacon!
On Jeopardy, we start off easy.
But it's more fun than a barrel of monkeys.
Playing our game well. Then the pressure blows.
TNT.
I'll bet $4,500. Money, 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 money.
With a series of shots to the head.
What's a chowder head?
Dunderhead.
Meathead.
You gotta think fast on your feet to beat the champ.
What is the Bristol Stomp?
What is a perfect game? You're in for a rare treat.
Jeopardy! The most fun you can have with your brain.
Watch Jeopardy and play along weeknights at 7 on Channel 6.
As we continue our coverage of the invasion of Panama, here in Philadelphia, some supporters and members of a group called Pledge of Resistance are protesting the invasion down at 5th and Market. They object to the U.S. invasion of Panama. Karen Friedman's live in Center City with the latest there. Karen?
Well, Mark, you can tell how strongly these people object, or they wouldn't be walking around in a giant circle in bitter cold temperatures like this. They are very much against the United States invasion into Panama. As a matter of fact, they think that no country has the right to invade any other country. One of the people sharing that opinion is Donna Scher. She's one of numerous groups represented here today. Let me pose a question to you, Donna. What, if any, would be the alternative?
The position is that the U.S. has no right, whether legally, morally, or politically in international law, to invade another country. That the internal situation in Panama has to be decided by the Panamanians, not by U.S. bombings, not by U.S. military, and not by the White House. It has to be decided in Panama. And the United States has had it very close with Noriega through 1987. When Noriega stopped supporting U.S. policy in Central America, that's when the U.S. broke relations.
But if I can interject, when Noriega did stop supporting U.S. policy, as you say, are you in favor of Noriega remaining in power, or do you think he has to be removed?
Just like I said in the beginning, the Panamanians have to determine their own internal situation. Self-determination means that the people in that nation determine who they want in power and who is going to govern them. It's not the role of the United States to militarily or any other means try to overthrow one government and place in who they like.
Okay, Donna, thank you. Also, some of the other people that I have been speaking to here say that the invasion did no good because the United States allegedly went down to get Noriega, and they say that the mission failed. There have been approximately 14 such protests like this objecting to the United States action between yesterday and today. These people say as long as American troops remain there, there will be more protests just like this one. I'm Karen Freeman, live on the action camp from 5th and Market.
Okay, Karen, thank you. Well, topping our people scene now, a former Paramount executive says actor-comedian Eddie Murphy was told 6 years ago about an Art Buchwald script idea for Murphy to play an African king visiting America. You'll recall in 1987, Murphy starred in the film Coming to America that was produced by Paramount Pictures and directed by John Landis. It's about an African prince who visits America. Well, humorist Art Buchwald says the idea for that movie was his and was stolen by Paramount. That's why he's suing Paramount for $5 million. During testimony yesterday, former Paramount executive David Kirkpatrick said the idea was told to Murphy during a dinner meeting in 1983. He says Murphy ultimately rejected the idea, but then in 1987 came Murphy's Coming to America. Paramount contends Murphy and his co-star Arsenio Hall conceived the idea. The film grossed $300 million. Entertainer Bobby Brown has reason to sing tonight. The award-winning Brown has just grabbed the most number of nominations for American Music Awards this year. The vocalist was nominated in 5 out of 6 categories. Meantime, video dance queen Paula Abdul received 4 nominations. Winners of the 27 awards will be announced during a 3-hour ABC broadcast, which you can, of course, see right here on Channel 6. It'll be live from Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles on January 22nd.
Wait till they get a load of me.
And the star of the hit film Batman says he has lots of friends. In the January issue of Gentleman's Quarterly, actor Jack Nicholson says he's not aware of a single enemy out there who hates him because of some business venture. He says everybody's been great to him, and he's been great to them. Nicholson is shedding his Joker character to star in the sequel to another of his big hit movies, Chinatown. Production of sequel entitled The Two Jakes is currently underway.
Scott's here, looking ahead to a big game tomorrow night. Little rivalry there.
Got the sure way to take care of all this cold weather.
What?
Heat it up with some red-hot hoops. The Sixers will be in Boston tomorrow night to play the Celtics. Last night, Larry Bird warmed up for that game with 40 points against Utah. Well, Charles Barkley had a big night, and the Sixers win over Washington. Barkley enjoyed his biggest game of the season. Charles burned the Bullets with 34-2 on the jam. The Sixers needed Barkley because Rick Mahorn got tossed out of another game. He got called for the elbowing foul on Mel Turpin. Really not much of a foul, but Ricky really got into it with referee Bill Oakes. Had to be pulled away from the referee. Wound up getting tossed out of his 3rd game this season. With Mahorn gone, Ron Anderson picked up the slack. His shooting slump couldn't have ended at a better time. Anderson with 22. The Bullets hung tough. 30 points last night from Bernard King, but every time Washington got close, Anderson found the range. Ron Anderson, 14 of his 22 in the fourth quarter, as the Sixers hung on to win it 118-111. Last night, Michael Jordan lit it up down in Florida. But as if by magic, Orlando won the ball game.